global earthquake. Putin humiliated. Trump strikes back. Ukraine rises. In a stunning twist, Donald Trump turns his back on Vladimir Putin, cancelling their long-anticipated meeting and launching a new wave of deadly economic sanctions that could suffocate the Kremlin once and for all. At the same time, Ukraine's power is soaring like never before. Dozens of F-16 fighter jets from Belgium and Viper helicopters from the US are joining the skies, forming an unstoppable wall of steel and fire. The message to Moscow is clear. The free world stands united and the counterpunch is coming. Meanwhile, North Korea throws more fuel into flames, launching missiles on the eve of the global summit. Coincidence? Or a signal to Putin that his last friends are just lighting matches near the powder keg. The tension is unbearable, the stakes higher than ever, and on the front lines, absolute carnage. Ukraine's defenders have eliminated over 50 elite Russian officers. The blow is catastrophic. Russia's best men are gone, their command structure collapsing in chaos and fear. The invincible army is bleeding out. The storm has begun. Ukraine's vengeance, the West's unity, and Putin's downfall. All the details in our special edition of Hotspot. Trump once again made a sharp political turn, this time away from Putin. After giving Kyiv a cold shower in Washington, the unpredictable US president now seems ready to pour a bucket of ice water over Moscow. Global media are buzzing with reports that because of Putin's stubborn and uncompromising stance, his planned talks with Trump in Budapest are cancelled. What's really happening behind closed doors in the White House and the Kremlin? The full story in our next report.
Is Putin fooling Trump again, or is Kremlin diplomacy simply preserving tradition? The so-called summit between the Russian dictator and the American president, which according to the latter was supposed to take place in 2 weeks, has been postponed indefinitely. The preliminary meeting between the two sides, represented by Lavrov and Rubio and allegedly scheduled for October 23rd, has already been cancelled. According to CNN, during a phone conversation between the representatives, it turned out that they see the solution to the problem in completely different ways. After this information appeared in the media, Lavrov himself responded. He essentially confirmed that the Russians, as before, are sticking to their position.
I want to officially confirm that Russia has not changed its position compared to the understandings reached during the lengthy negotiations between Putin and Trump in Alaska. These understandings are based on the agreement that was reached at that particular time, which President Trump very succinctly and clearly expressed when he stated that what is truly needed is a long-term, sustainable and lasting peace, rather than simply an immediate ceasefire that would ultimately lead nowhere and accomplish nothing. We remain fully and unwaveringly committed to this formula, and we continue to stand by it as the best path forward for achieving a meaningful and enduring resolution to the conflict.
Peskov also joined in echoing his Kremlin colleagues' fabrications. They say, how can you implement something that was never agreed upon?
You can't postpone something that was never set in stone. Something that was never set in stone. Neither President Trump nor President Putin ever specified exact timelines. Preparation is needed, serious preparation. You heard statements from both the American side and ours that this may take time. Therefore, no specific dates were ever established from the very beginning, at any point.
At the same time, vague statements are coming out of Moscow, not in favor of Putin's visit to Budapest. They say that the trip is unsafe for the aging dictator, since there is a risk of assassination by intelligence agencies. The journey to Hungary is a long one, and in general, the Poles, who have said they could arrest Putin, are capable of terrorist acts.
It is possible to assume that disagreements arose between Lavrov and Rubio. They were unable to reach an agreement on some important issue that needed to be brought to the leaders for approval. This is absolutely realistic and possible. But on the other hand, there may be other underlying factors at play here. This is more in the style of Russian diplomacy, to create confusion once again, make the situation uncertain, and then boldly and courageously go to the meeting to resolve certain issues. In other words, to give up yet another minor and non-essential position.
Meanwhile, Volodymyr Zelensky is planning to attend the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing, which partners are hastily organizing in London on October 24th. The media, citing a draft of the European Union's conclusions, report that at the meeting, European leaders will confirm their decision to provide financial support to Ukraine over the next 3 years using frozen Russian assets.
Obviously, the expectation is not that we will be fighting for 3 years. The expectation is to put pressure on Russia at these negotiations. That's the real calculation. The main goal is to force Russia to listen to Ukraine's demands. to say, look, Ukraine has 140 billion plus its own funds plus resources from our partners. Altogether, this could amount to 200 to 300 billion over 3 years. These are extremely comparable sums to what Russia currently has.
In addition, according to media reports, Italy will soon join NATO's initiative to purchase American weapons for Ukraine. Previously, its authorities were opposed to this. With the frozen Russian funds, Ukrainians also plan to purchase 25 Patriot systems from the United States, which will protect Ukrainian cities from attacks by the Russian army.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
In a historic move, Kyiv is set to receive Belgian F-16 fighter jets, powerful symbols of Europe's unwavering support, while simultaneously expanding its own fleet with American-made AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters and UH-1Y Venom transport aircraft. These cutting-edge machines will give Ukraine unmatched air dominance, precision strikes, rapid troop deployment, and deadly firepower against enemy targets. How will these advanced aircraft change the balance of power? The full story coming up next.
One of the largest and most popular Russian Telegram channels, Diva Mayora, with an audience of over 1 million subscribers, reposted news about Ukraine purchasing combat and transport helicopters.
We're talking about the Viper and the Venom. The manufacturer Beltextron announced the signing of a memorandum of intent to develop cooperation with Ukraine. An agreement was signed to assess approaches to industrial cooperation as part of a potential helicopter purchase. AH-1Z and UH-1Y. The Venom is a transport helicopter, while the Viper is an attack helicopter that carries Hellfires. Both of them can use 70mm rockets, which basically means APKWS. And the Venom can be equipped with a minigun. And recalling American practices, Ukraine can use these helicopters to shoot down drones like the Geran.
The interest of Russian media in the purchase of such helicopters suggests that the Kremlin understands that with the appearance of these birds in Ukrainian skies, the air defense system will become much more effective in the fight against Shahed strike drones. Attack helicopters? Bell helicopters are being purchased to replace the outdated Mi-24 and Mi-8, which have long outlived their service life. 85% of the parts in the Viper and Venom are identical, which means maintenance is cheap and simple. The Viper was created during the Vietnam War, back in 1965. And already in the 2000s, it received new engines and a rotor, upgraded avionics, a fire control system, comprehensive survivability improvements, and extensive digitalization. In terms of capabilities, the Viper is almost on par with the best attack helicopter in the world, the Apache.
The Apache is objectively more powerful since it's a machine with a maximum takeoff weight of 14 tons compared to 8.4 tons. The Apache's combat radius, 300 kilometers, while the Viper's is 243 kilometers. Also, the Apache's main armament is more numerous, up to 16 AGM-114 Hellfires compared to 8 on the Viper. But the typical combat loadout on the Apache is quite similar. The Viper carries 8 Hellfires and 2 pods of 70mm unguided Hydra rockets. As for automatic cannons, it's 30mm versus 20mm.
An agreement has already been signed regarding the evaluation of approaches to industrial cooperation within the framework of purchasing Viper and Venom helicopters.
We are proud to announce this agreement and the possibility of delivering these incredible helicopters to Ukraine. This initiative has been in development for some time and we look forward to its completion. Jeffrey Schlosser, Senior Vice President of Bell.
In addition to the procurement of transport and attack helicopters, Ukraine will soon receive another batch of F-16 fighter jets. The Belgian Minister of Defense stated that as early as the beginning of 2026, the new birds will enter service in Ukraine immediately after Belgium receives its new F-35s.
We continue to receive deliveries according to schedule. The first 3 F-35s, not 4, have already arrived. Now they need to become operational. I think this will take a year or a year and a half. Once we have operational capability, we will be able to transfer our F-16S to Ukraine. This is a very important phase. I always explain this to the Ukrainians. As soon as we are able, we will transfer them. However, don't forget that our country has DCA capabilities and plays an important role in NATO's nuclear deterrence policy. This is the cornerstone of our doctrine. Theo Franken, Minister of Defense of Belgium.
This year, Ukraine received 2 F-16S from Belgium for spare parts. According to the security agreement between Ukraine and Belgium, the latter is to deliver 30 F-16 fighter jets by 2028. As of June 2025, Ukraine has already received more than 40 F-16s from its allies.
The war's rhythm has changed dramatically in just the past few hours. Fierce clashes, new drone strikes, and decisive counterattacks are rewriting the situation along the entire front. As Ukrainian forces hold the line and push forward, the world watches a turning point in real time. Here's what's unfolding right now and why it matters.
Russian mechanized assaults are suffering a complete collapse. Equipment is burning on all fronts, and the occupiers are being transferred to motorcycles. Ukrainian armed forces strikes on Russian rear positions are crippling Putin's economy, and Russian citizens are now openly calling for a strike on the Kremlin.
The Kremlin isn't here, damn it. You need to hit the Kremlin, idiots. You got the coordinates mixed up.
Zaporizhzhia is under threat. What all military analysts have been talking about has begun. And also Pokrovsk, a thorn in the Kremlin side, continues to hold out, drawing Russian reserves and preventing Moscow from gaining a strategic advantage along the entire front line. Russia is trying to take advantage of the last weeks of good weather to advance as much as possible on the front. This is exactly why the enemy suffered record losses of heavy equipment in October compared to the entire year of 2025. Just in the past 24 hours, 2 tanks and more than a dozen armored fighting vehicles were destroyed.
With small assault infantry groups, it is theoretically possible to advance, but certainly not to any significant depth. This may indicate that right now there is an attempt at a mechanized offensive aimed at breaking through the front line across a width of at least 6 to 8 kilometers, the very thing described in military textbooks and combat regulations, and to advance at least several dozen kilometers. Heavy equipment is being used for this purpose.
The most well-prepared assault units, both in terms of equipment and personnel, are traditionally concentrated in the Pokrovsk direction. However, round-the-clock attacks are not bringing the occupiers the desired results.
As of today, it is clear that despite the enemy's superior forces on all fronts, including the Pokrovsk direction, which remains truly the hottest spot and where the Russian army is attacking the most, we can say that such frontal actions by the Russians are unlikely to be repeated today, because it is obvious that the 51st Combined Arms Army, which is attacking in this direction, has plenty of other problems to deal with.
And the main one is the encirclement of Russian troops near Dobropilya. For about a month now, Moscow has been trying to send in reserves there, which significantly disperses the efforts of the Russian group. As a result, all that has been achieved regarding Pokrovsk is the presence of small sabotage and reconnaissance groups on the outskirts of the city.
Indeed, counter-sabotage operations are very active today. Accordingly, the main task for the defense forces is to drive the Russians out of the urban buildings as much as possible. Because engaging in urban combat is the Russians' objective at this stage. To gain a foothold in the city so that they can then wait for reinforcements from other forces.
At the same time, it seems that another hotspot may become the Zaporizhzhia direction. After Pokrovsk, this is the second place where the Russians are trying to break through with large mechanized columns. However, they are also failing to achieve any results here. The situation has reached the point where even the ZID military bloggers, who usually praise every wise decision of the command, have been forced to change their rhetoric.
The enemy can easily send 30 FPV drones against a single tank. Accordingly, no tank can withstand 30 FPV drones. That's the whole point. It's utterly insignificant peanuts. Go to hell. Frankly, all you so-called experts who keep pushing for more recruitment just to send people to be wiped out in columns.
However, in the high offices of the occupiers, they stopped counting losses a long time ago. The main thing is to ensure progress at any cost, and where there is none, at least to show the necessary drive.
I believe it is extremely important for the enemy to get as close as possible to the regional center of Zaporizhzhia. Control over this settlement would not only allow Vladimir Putin to claim that he controls the entire Zaporizhzhia region, but also seriously damage the infrastructure, primarily the industry of this regional center. In the south of the Zaporizhzhia region, there is quite a large distance between settlements. This means that the enemy has the opportunity to maneuver forces and resources.
At the same time, today's maneuvers are mostly aimed at controlling Ukrainian logistics. After all, a large weapons hub in the form of the regional center allows the Ukrainian armed forces to quickly deliver ammunition and reserves.
In the Poltavka-Malinovka-Uspenovka sector, Russian infantry regularly conducts assault operations, mainly using convicts and other expendables. The logistics situation is about the same as in all other directions. The Russian armed forces are trying to control all transport routes, setting up ambushes or drone checkpoints, including using optical surveillance.
However, attempts to quickly rush through the kill zone sometimes end in mishaps. For example, like this self-destruction against a disabled vehicle.
They were heading into the attack, but because of the smoke from the smoke grenades, they didn't see the disabled armored vehicle and crashed into it one after another.
At the same time, intense resistance continues in the Russian rear as well. For example, a strike by drones and Storm Shadow cruise missiles the day before appears to have permanently shut down the Bryansk chemical plant.
The results of the strike are being clarified, but according to monitoring channels, the plant has been completely destroyed. Photos of the missile tail sections scattered around the area were published in Telegram channels. The Bryansk chemical plant is an important part of the Russian military-industrial complex. At this facility, the occupiers produced gunpowder, explosives, and components for rocket fuel.
By the way, Ukrainian attacks on Russian military-industrial facilities seem to have annoyed Russians so much that they're finally starting to realize where the real source of all their problems lies.
The Kremlin isn't here, fuckers! You should be hitting the Kremlin, assholes. You got the coordinates mixed up.
And finally, a wonderful story from the SBU. After watching yet another propaganda video about Russian light aircraft intercepting drones, the security service decided to make their own video. The specialists easily copied the coordinates, and the next drone route was set to target them.
North Korea launched several short-range missiles on the eve of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. South Korea condemned the act as a provocation by Kim Jong-un, but questions remain. What is Pyongyang actually trying to achieve, and could this be a deliberate signal aimed at world leaders gathering in Seoul, including President Trump himself? The tension is mounting, the stakes are rising, and the world is watching closely. More on this in our report.
Kim Jong-un greets Trump with missiles. On October 22nd, North Korea likely launched several short-range missiles toward the East Sea. It is said that this is connected to the upcoming Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum Summit, which will take place next week.
With a very high degree of certainty, and without much doubt, of course, it is North Korea that is sending a clear and deliberate political signal to the international community. And it is sending this signal to many parties. First and foremost, it is directed at the United States of America and China.
21 countries will be present at the summit, including US President Trump, who plans to meet with the President of South Korea and the leader of China.
The meeting is planned at this summit between Trump and Xi Jinping, which both sides have talked about a lot. It has not been finalized yet. So far, it is not being discussed as something that will definitely take place. But such options, such variations do exist. But mainly, of course, this platform, the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, primarily brings together economic partners, security partners, and partners of the United States of America.
Nevertheless, South Korea regards North Korea's missile launches as a provocation. After all, Pyongyang had previously warned that it would respond harshly to the expansion of military cooperation between the US, Japan, and South Korea.
As I see it in this particular case, North Korea once again did not explicitly threaten to carry out a launch. Once again, it was most likely attempting to send a calculated political signal, one that would in some way destabilize the regional security situation and perhaps push the United States and President Trump in particular to reconsider in a serious manner, truly believing that North Korea is genuinely ready to shut down its nuclear weapons program.
Despite the fact that North Korea is not officially recognized as a nuclear power, Kim Jong-un's regime continues to actively develop its nuclear program and regularly showcases new missiles. For example, on October 11th, during a military parade.
According to experts, the estimated range of the missile is 15,000 kilometers. It can reach any city in the United States, from Washington to Los Angeles.
This is not the first time North Korea has demonstratively launched missiles. And the main goal of such provocations is precisely to achieve recognition as a nuclear state and to force the UN to lift the economic sanctions imposed because of the creation of these very weapons.
North Korea wants to create a nuclear triad. Yes, in fact, even China does not have a nuclear triad. There are only two countries that possess a nuclear triad. These are the United States of America and the Russian Federation. So, As we can see, North Korea's military ambitions are insatiable because the issue is not at all about North Korea being ready to give up its nuclear weapons. Moreover, it is not just increasing the quantity, but also the quality, and is generally moving toward creating a triad with the help of the Russian Federation.
But here is an equally important question. Will Kim go for such provocations during the summit itself?
In my opinion, the likelihood that this could happen during the summit is still minimal. Because North Korea, again, if not only a visit from the President of the United States is planned, but also a meeting with Xi Jinping, this could turn into an act of self-destruction. Well, because we understand that a huge number of economic ties between North Korea are connected to China. And as for the United States, they simply have a direct military presence there.
And while world leaders are searching for ways to engage in dialogue, North Korea, just like the Kremlin, is following the same pattern: pressure, shows of force, and provocations.
Ukraine's defenders have delivered a devastating strike against Russia's elite forces. More than 50 senior enemy officers, including operatives from the top-tier sanctions and Kubinka special units, as well as members of Russia's main intelligence directorate and special operations forces, have been eliminated. This is a catastrophic loss for Moscow. Years of costly training and strategic expertise wiped out in one blow. The enemy's command system is reeling and panic is spreading through the ranks. Full details in our next report.
More than 3,000 kilometers. That is the current length of the front line between Ukraine and Russia. Of that, nearly 1,000 kilometers are active combat zones. Hundreds of kilometers where Ukrainian defenders break the backbone of an army that was once called the second strongest in the world every single day. And every meter of this line is a story of courage, loss, and unbreakable will. At this front, not only columns of equipment and infantry are being destroyed, but also Russia's military elite. During the full-scale invasion, Ukrainian fighters have eliminated dozens of special forces operatives from the elite sanctions and Kubinka units, those whom even in Russia itself are called the elite of the elite.
Losses of such fighters are especially painful for Russia. Each of them is not an ordinary soldier, but a specialist who has undergone years of training. Training a single officer like this takes years and requires significant resources, as noted by I Want to Live.
Recently, a documentary film was released to the public about the elimination of a sabotage and reconnaissance group from the sanctions Special Operations Center, which was operating in the Chernihiv region. This operation became one of the most successful since the beginning of the full-scale war. Ukrainian intelligence officers from the 54th Separate Reconnaissance Battalion, together with border guards from the 105th Detachment named after Prince Vladimir the Great, eliminated 6 enemy officers. The bodies of those killed, as well as weapons and equipment, were captured.
Sanctions is in operation. They enter Ukrainian territory with GoPro cameras turned on, and they record all their actions, if you can even call it work. Murder, sabotage, this is essentially terror, and they are the first to show it to their, perhaps, commanders or superiors to report back. That's the first thing. And secondly, they post all of this online to intimidate people. There are videos titled, "How I Spent This Summer." And in these videos, there are actual montages. The killing of Ukrainians, both Ukrainian soldiers and Ukrainian civilians.
The sanctions and Kubinka centers are key units of the Russian Federation's Special Operations Forces, reporting directly to the General Staff. Only the best of the best are selected there, those who are meant to carry out the most complex, covert, and dangerous missions. They are trained using Western methods and deployed in operations outside the country, from Ukraine to Africa. But in Ukraine, even such an elite force proved powerless. Those whom Moscow calls invisible fighters become visible on Ukrainian fields.
Stop! Come here! I've got it! Holding. Get out. 134.
According to the I Want to Live project, during the war, Ukraine has eliminated at least 58 fighters from the Russian Special Operations Forces of the GRU and FSB. For the enemy's army, these are not just losses. It's a blow to the core personnel, to those who were supposed to conduct reconnaissance, coordinate operations, and prepare new sabotage missions. And while Russian propaganda keeps talking about precision weaponry and the professionalism of the army, the reality is completely different. Across more than 3,000 kilometers of front, Ukraine is not only holding the line but is also methodically eliminating those whom the Kremlin considers untouchable. And no matter how long Russia wages this aggression, the defense forces will always give the same answer. No invader will leave Ukrainian soil alive.
At the this moment, that's all from me, Maria Farafonova. Even more hellish Frontline news in our next episode. But for now, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon.